Denzel in Training Day. Listen, you want to go to jail, you want to go home. Let me quarterback this thing.
You
right?
done or you finished?
Let me quarterback this thing, right? So that's how I'm looking at your books. Jake came through the door. We put 2 in. This is what we going to do. How much money we got coming in? What we got coming out? What do you want to do? So we could pay no taxes, but here's the requirements to do that. Are you ready to do it now?
Yeah.
And how long will that take? Tax strategy gurus we got out here, right? That's a big pet peeve of mine because you can't, there's no way I can look at you and say, hey, go ahead and buy the G-Wagon, go ahead and buy the jet, go ahead and take your family on to Bali. Right, and
hire your child,
and I don't know your numbers.
Hire your 6
right. So the key, how do I know if I got a good tax strategy? Is your books done? That's the first question I would say. Are my books done? Right, like how do my books look? What's going on? We're glad to have you at another episode of Minding Your Biz podcast. Listen, everything that you hear or see on this podcast episode is for educational purposes only. We have not seen your books. We have not seen your specific situation. Make sure you please seek your financial advisor for anything pertaining to your situation. Peace. What's going on, y'all? It's another episode of Minding Your Biz. We on episode 7. I'm Dr. Blackwealth.
And this is Mrs. Fad Financial coming at you for episode 7. Look at us being consistent for 7 episodes.
That's right. We're gonna do something. We're gonna do it right.
That's right. That's right.
So, what's the happenings? What's the hot topics
happening in the world?
Yeah.
Listen. So for me, I've been on my financial algorithm, changing it up, making sure that our numbers are right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't. That we're more profitable, that I'm leaner, I'm cutting out a lot of fat. And so just as previous episodes, we're changing, we're moving into a new office. So I'm looking at new offices like every week, every day. I'm like riding up, like, what y'all got? Looking. But being more and more in tune to the numbers, as a business that has gone through adversity and some reduction, right? And so I think a lot of people don't talk about that, right? You always hear about the businesses doing amazing, and that's such a false narrative because that is not the reality. We've been in business for 12 years. You think you're not going to have a downward turn?
Wait a minute now, 12 years. Don't just speed past that. Somebody just went on the Secretary of State. 12, and you talking about 12 years restructure, right?
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So we were, just to be completely honest, we were flagrant and a little disrespectful with how we started to spend money and kind of, I felt like lost the vision on when we first started this thing, where money was supposed to go.
Right.
Like I felt like we started to get really more consumed with the stuff. Right. So we initially started this thing for financial freedom, all the bells and whistles that people talk about. I want to do, a legacy for my kids.
For sure.
I don't want, we were all of that. And plus we really wanted to help the community. We bought land in South Fulton. We really want to develop and grow because we saw the lack here in a predominantly Black community. And so we wanted to develop resources, and things here for where we were. And I think we really kind of lost track of it a little bit because money was plentiful.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we don't. It's
like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Right? Sometimes we don't really think that a drought is coming, that winter is coming. We put money away, but we didn't really think that we would have such a drawback and that certain parts of the business, the income revenue was going to be cut off completely, right? Being my husband was an insurance agent, the tax decline wasn't too bad, but we did have a reduction in tax clients. And so we were able to, make that up on the opposite end. But long story short, this year is really about numbers, making sure we stay profitable, cutting back on things that we no longer need, being more efficient, doing the tough things, right? I had to lay off people, cut staff, change. It was a big thing.
How was that?
I mean, it was tough. It was some people that's with us for years, but I think sometimes you have to do it when people no longer serve where you are going, right? If you no longer are serving in a need capacity
For sure.
to where I am and where I'm going, then I need to cut you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, not even sometimes, but we can get emotional, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that. We talk about it episode after episode, operating from fact and not emotion. And people say it's just business. It's just business. Yes, it is, but feelings are involved.
Yeah.
People get feelings hurt. They delay things because they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation because how that feels. And I'm not saying this because it's a hypothetical thing. I'm saying it because I went through it.
Right.
And it was difficult, right? Because when someone is with you for 10 years, you build a certain type of relationship. But I had to look at the numbers and say, this person is no longer serving us. It's not profitable. I can find a person for what they doing at a fraction of the cost. So
no, for sure.
I had to look at the numbers and go, if I still want to be in this business, I need to cut it. I need to cut my losses.
Yeah, and I think we just lose sight of, we go into business emotionally, like, oh, I want to start this thing, or I think I'm good at doing this thing, right? And then business have a way of testing if we are really good. We might be good at a specific thing, like I might be a doctor and a really good surgeon, but do that mean that I might need to leave Piedmont and start my own practice, right? I might not, right? I might just be a really good surgeon. Somebody, they call me in, hey Tariq, we got a triage, whatever that looks like, come in, and I rush in,
right,
versus what that looks like. Well, I want to start my own practice and let me figure that out. That's like night and day.
That's a completely different animal.
That's night and day, right?
Yeah.
So I know in my world, like, as I can really relate to some of that as I'm battling my own mental and spiritual journey into it, realizing like, man, I've lost sight of my own vision.
Yeah.
And then starting to listen to mentors where I'm getting hit with biblical principles that relate to life in general and business. And it makes me start to look at things different, right? And so I know I wrote a post on like Facebook a few weeks ago. I'm like, I can't really tell if outside of just natural evolution of the world,
right,
if times for our people is that much different from the 60s to today. Like the times we were living in that arena where you got the nation at its height with Malcolm, you got the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King in the South, right, leading up that charge of fighting for civil rights. And then as we seen Martin Luther King message specifically change into economics. Like, we need to be coming with the economics. Where's our 40 acres and a mule? Where's our, you gave these people their stuff, where the government can give us our stuff. And I'm thinking like, we're not that far removed. So when I'm reading stuff in the Bible and Paul tell Timothy, a man that don't take care of his family, that's worse than infidel. And I'm like, like that's serious.
You need to be on some of these TikTok conversations.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's like a man that don't take it. So I'm looking at it.
That's a word. But
I'm like, what? That's worse than. And then I'm seeing every first of the month, we got conversations about 50-50. You know, we in a relationship podcast, but we're about the business of doing the business, right? So I'm looking at principles like that. I'm also looking at principles like, you know, Solomon was chosen to lead his people, go into business, have rulership over his kingdom, and he wasn't even ready. So we thinking like, oh, well, let me go into business because this is what I want to do. Or I feel like my product or service is good for the world, right? But what are we listening to what God's telling you to do that's right for his people? Because ultimately we're here to serve.
That's right.
Right. So when I look at Solomon build out his business model, and he was like, I'm too young for this. Like, I don't know which I go in or which way I go out, right? Give me the discernment to pass judgment on your people. And God reward him in a way that says, listen, since you ask so little of me, since you asked of me so little, you didn't ask me to have long life, long reign. You wasn't selfish in your ask. There will be no king who was before you or after you. You'll be the greatest of the greatest. As long as you are serving and doing what I'm asking you to do, I will be there for you. The moment that, and he was very clear, the moment this change up, you gonna change.
That's right.
Right? He was very clear in that.
That's right.
And so as my mentor, I'm just like, oh man, I went from nation to Jehovah Witness to being in the church, and I never heard principles of that such that apply to me. So I'm like studying more, being more studious in the Bible to relate it to my business, because we have that vision, 4-page vision of how we want to grow businesses and ultimately be an investor that helps minority businesses.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, it's no different than
a
the
lot
60s.
of times people pull the parables and the principles and the stories from the Bible to control how you move and operate
For
on
sure.
a personal level and not
Yes.
thinking about the family business level, right? So
And how they can be self-sufficient.
for sure,
Yeah.
right? Because there are tons of people, not tons, but there are quite a few successful people in the Bible,
Yeah.
right? And the principle is that if you go against what I'm telling you to do, right, as I'm ordering your steps, and hey, you're going to have an adverse reaction.
Right.
And so when I think about us and how fruitful we were, and we were moving in the way God wanted us to,
Right.
and when we steered away from that, what was the adverse reaction? And I think if people don't want to sit in that and own that, right?
Yeah.
They want to justify it and say, oh, well, no one told me about saving. No one told me about this, or no one told me about that. Yeah, but like, you have to have accountability for the things you do. No one should have to tell you about certain things. So I think this, as you talk about, hey, you want to move into more spiritual, religion-led principles, I think that's amazing, because it comes with a lot of accountability and self-assessment.
For sure, no, and I'm very much so hard on myself, and that's why I've been really studying, going back to listen at messages, the time period, right? So I've been listening to Malcolm, and we watched the series the show on I forgot his name already, but Rutland, I think, who spearheaded the I Have a Dream speech when Martin Luther King spoke in Washington, and I'm like, man, really times. If I'm being honest, it might be a little bit worse, because now we're in a world where we have gotten somewhat of what we asked for, right? Integration with America and some sense of rights and duties and responsibilities, but then we are a little bit lax. And so to take on that principle, like I take it on my heart, like, man, that's 400 years of like our family not being able to do what they needed to do. Not that I gotta, I guess save all the people, but to take on that responsibility, it makes me move different. Because everybody get in the business and say the same thing. Oh, I want to provide for my family. Oh, I want to leave my children's children something. Oh, I want to do this. But then when I'm looking at your activity
it's
the numbers,
it's the opposite.
Right? As I'm doing your books, I'm seeing something opposite. You can't tell me you love your family and look at what you're doing with your money, right? Or how you're growing your business, or what you're doing. And like I said, it's no different from that. So being serious and holding not only myself accountable, but if I'm gonna hold me accountable, I'm gonna hold you accountable.
For sure. And I think a lot of it too is, I wouldn't say we're worse. I just think because we have so much information, we have so much access that it tends to breed laziness, because we don't have to, search and find, right? I grew up, we were the only house on the block that had a full book of encyclopedias, okay?
Yeah.
All the kids would come to my house to do their homework, okay? We were missing X, Y, and Z,
right?
But that's okay. We had all the other ones, and they would come and we would research,
right?
And you had to put more effort for knowledge, where now it is right at your fingertips, and we don't take advantage of it.
That's
I think sometimes when things come too easy, we kind of don't realize how much opportunity we do have, right? If we are talking about the 60s, I don't know if we would be sitting at this table if we would have that opportunity, right? And so I look back and go, we definitely are advanced. We've definitely come away, but I think we've been a little flagrant and careless about the opportunities that we do have. And I don't think that is necessarily a black thing. I think that is American capitalist consumer thing. I think that is like...
Can't just put it on black people.
No.
Right.
We got white folks, and I do their books, and they don't have no spending. They not disciplined either.
And I definitely see it. And that was one of my, I guess, my own perception or misconception, because that's how I thought. I'm like, man, I'm gonna go into business and I'm helping my people because I ain't never sat at my dinner table and we talked about trust, business,
They
ownership,
plague
nothing.
with the same dysfunction,
Then I started,
which is
getting
consumerism and wanting too much shit.
Yep.
That is like crosses every
religion,
color, creed, sexuality. We consume more than we bring in.
And then you think about just the opposite end of that. Those are who are in power. It's a fight for just power. There's greed behind that. There's no morals behind that. There's no principles behind that, right? But in that same message, like that message that was pushed in the 60s to take the religion out of it, right? The nation was really strong in holding your own. Yeah. Doing your own thing, owning your own business,
self-sufficiency.
being self-sufficient, right? And so I'm thinking as we move into, or as we are in today's world, that's kind of like what you said. It's so much information is saturated. We don't really know what's the next step, what to do. And so that's where our passion, if I could say, comes behind business owners, because I believe that businesses is the backbone of America.
For sure.
The more we know about business and how to run business, the better we are able to take care of our families, have an impact on the world, just like you was talking about laying off.
Yeah.
But then there was a period where you hired. So think about off the fruits of your labor, you hire somebody who gets a salary that get to do what? Turn around and take care of their family, their children, their rent or mortgage, and we're giving back to the economy in such a way. So it's very, very much so important for us to drill in on businesses, and from a not necessarily, let's take the black out of it, but from a poor standpoint, a lot of us don't know the things that we need to do from a tax perspective, income perspective, strategy perspective that could keep us in business, save money, and take us to that next level, right? We're still trying to figure it out off of being a mom and pop operational, right?
Absolutely. 115%.
So,
we're playing catch up. So
yeah.
We're not playing catch up with one aspect. We're playing catch up with all of them.
All
right?
of it.
So how to build and grow a sustainable business, right? How to pass that down, how to get into home ownership. There's some people who are still buying their homes for the first time. How to protect that and pass that down. Insurance, right? We're talking about, stocks, investing. We're playing catch up across the board.
We holding the fort on all levels.
Right. So it looks really great. Like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do this. And so we're kind of like spread really thin. But the main thing you need to do is generate income. Spend less than you make. Like if you make money, if you make $100, don't spend $100. There's nothing left. Like, I'm gonna keep it real simple. You make $100, you probably need to spend $25. Like, because you gotta put something away for your room and board, for savings, for investing, and so I think budgeting and discipline is just out the window. We're just talking about making more. And then we look at our neighbor and go, dang, they got a house. I need a bigger house. They got a car. I need a bigger car. Right. And so that whole keeping up with the Joneses is a real thing that our world in which we live in, which is capitalism, preys on that and infiltrates that in everything we do. We need a new phone. We need a new car. We need a new this, so it is there. And I think we got to step back a little bit and get some more discipline.
And we see it with our seasoned business owners, right? So the thing is some of us have figured out a way that we're no longer in the stage of I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, or I'm trying to go off, leave my 9 to 5. Like, a lot of us are in that space. We're in the Turo space. We're in tax and finance. We're in the real estate market. We're in the podcast industry, and we are making our 7 figures and more. But then we don't take and we hit the fast pass. Well, what I'm starting to see now is like that's all the businesses that we get that come and say, Tariq, man, we made this amount of money. I ain't trying to pay this in taxes. And when I get down to it, it be the basics that save them, right? Like, we're not really diligent about our
books,
profit and loss statement, our budget, our P&L, however you want to, your income statement, whichever term you resonate with, right? We don't know what's coming in and from where, and we definitely don't know what's going out. And more importantly, we don't know what it costs us to make money. So when I think about like all the tax strategy gurus we got out here, right? That's a big pet peeve of mine, because you can't, You know, there's no way I can look at you and say, hey, go ahead and buy the G-Wagon, go ahead and buy the jet, go ahead and take your family on to Bali, right? And I don't know
hire your child,
and I don't know your numbers.
Hire your 6
right. So the key so how do I know if I got a good tax strategy? Is your books done? That's the first question I would say. Are my books done? Right? Like, how do my books look? So I know the number that I'm fighting with. So if I know we made $1 million, we spent $500,000, I know I need a strategy on the $500,000
that we
left.
spent.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm not even going to repeat what you said. that was good.
Right. Like, so I'm like, as a seasoned person, you are in that fight. And I can't tell you how many times I have to restructure businesses. And it's not a bad thing. Don't look at it like, oh my God, I'm doing wrong. No, you're doing absolutely right with what you have and the information you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
I just think that when it's time to level up, we'll know, right? Because we'll meet, either you'll work with us or whoever out there that can help you restructure what that looks like.
And have
right?
conversations.
Yeah.
And the thing I think people, I feel like, don't do, right? And we're going into the last quarter, right? Is to really think about their tax structure and their liability in its totality of the year, right? Not just when it's tax time.
Yeah.
But throughout the year, right, as you're making money, you need to be thinking about taxes. And the main important thing I always talk about is a profit share.
Yeah.
You don't live in any other country but the United States. You have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
So you really need to just like throw that I don't want to pay taxes out the window for the people that I don't want to pay no taxes. That is not a thing, right? Mm-hmm. You can do things to lower, you can do things to structure and be in a different income bracket, but to come up and say, I don't want to pay no taxes is really not the mindset you should have, right? You should be thinking, how can I pay less? What do I need to do? What entities do I need to set up? Because it's work to pay less taxes.
For sure.
This is a sport. These people who make millions of dollars and come up with ways to pay no taxes, they are strategizing. They are paying the people and doing the things to pay little to no tax.
And guess what? They paying the people.
Absolutely.
So you come to me and we charging.
You
don't
can't
be like, ooh, y'all high.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't make $100,000 and say, I don't want to pay no taxes and I only want to pay you $500.
I'm telling you. No. And it's worth way more than that, right? So I'd be like Denzel and Trina today. Listen, you want to go to jail, you want to go home. Let me quarterback this thing.
You done or you finished?
Let me quarterback this thing, right? So that's how I'm looking at your books. Jake came through the door, we put 2 in. This is what we gonna do. How much money we got coming in? What we got coming out? What do you want to do? So we could pay no taxes, but here's the requirements to do that. Are you ready to do it now?
Yeah.
And how long will that take?
Yeah.
And we don't have those honest conversations.
Or the discipline. Because if you set them up with investment opportunities, they ready the next month to pull out the money. Right. I gotta buy the what? You're not ready then.
Ain't even ready.
I gotta buy the house. I gotta do the No, you're not even ready. It's a long-term strategy to compound money, to make it grow. That means you can't touch it, to offset the tax liability today. So it's things you have to do. And so when we talk about stuff that's happening in the tax space.
For sure. And before we get into specific strategies, right, that we're going to give you guys that could possibly help, right? Like we said, seek your person so you know if it works for you or don't.
Absolutely.
But I just want to address those, my do-it-yourselfers, right? Like, so at a certain point, if we get into business and really doing business, there's a certain period where you know that you need to partner and hire people or bring people on board to help you. As a CEO, I might know everything there is to know about what it is that I do that can bring in money, about my money and all that stuff. But as we start doing things, and growing, all these stuffs become a full-time job. So I'd rather have somebody who can fully watch my money, help me make decisions, because that's what they do every day. Laws change almost every month. They for sure change every year, especially in the finance and tax industry, right? So the Republicans trying to figure out a way to reduce the taxes.
Every 3 to 4 years.
The Democrat is trying to figure out a way to give back to the people, which means we got to pay more taxes, right? And so every shift, we just had the House get booted out, new one come in, held up the budget. All this stuff affects us in every situation that we're in.
Absolutely.
And so somebody who's dedicated to that field, if you thinking about it, it's probably time for you to hire somebody. If it's on your mind now, go ahead and hire. It may not be us, but go ahead and hire whoever it is that can help you get to the level that you're trying to get to. Right.
And have those conversations.
Right.
I agree, 120%. Like, don't do the thing that's not what you do. I don't bake cakes. Can I bake cake? I can bake a cake.
Right.
But when it's time for my daughter's birthday, I go get the baker who bakes cakes.
For sure. I'm going to Publix.
I'm going to the place. That's what they do. Right. That's not what I do. Right. Could I make a pretty good cake? Maybe. Right. But y'all going to be happy with it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, for sure. So you just gotta know, right? So a big thing that's happening or changes that's coming up that most people
talking about laws,
right? As we talk about the laws
change, administration, things that happen, the Transparency Act.
So we got the Transparency Act that goes into effect January 1 of 2024. Yep. In that Transparency Act, this is coming from the FinCEN department, right? You can go right on their website and look up all this information that we're telling you. Mm-hmm. But there comes a beneficiary ownership informational report that we have to do. Basically, the government is like, well,
before you get into it, though, how do you feel about it, though?
I mean,
I've been seeing all the things like. You know.
Personally, I feel like I don't like it. I feel like there's a bigger play that somebody probably haven't studied to figure out what's happening. On the flip side to it, government is set up to protect the people from themselves, right? That's why we have laws that govern.
Regulation.
So I can understand the need of if somebody funneling money, you got the drug cartel that's shifting money because it's the financial crimes department.
Yeah.
So, and mostly that's probably set up with cartels, probably big
money
related,
that's hiding and funneling money. Right. That set up shop here to funnel and clean money.
So
or
if I open up ABC, like a good movie with that would be The Accountant, right? Yeah. So remember how he was in the movie ZZZ Accountant, right? So it's like, I know you ain't, you know what I mean? So
or especially they'll come and open up a laundry shop, right? And the laundry shop is making so much money, but they want to know, well, who's the ownership, right? Yeah. Not just your girlfriend. Yeah. Right. Who's really making the money here?
Sure. But then the ownership in me is like, no, I still want to protect my privacy because everybody can get hacked, right? Like government gets hacked all the time. We already talking about Russia coming in, this, that, and the third. So like, is there going to be parameters that really protect me from somebody like you or the average person in the street knowing that I own whatever business that I own, right? And so how safe and secure is that as they bring on this BOI? And I think it's still new. I think it's like a requirement, but I think it's still trying to figure out what that really looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, for the meat and potatoes of it, it's still, so if you are in an entity or in a state that doesn't allow full transparency, you're still protected from the average Joe. Okay. But the government is like, we the government.
We want to know.
We need to know. We don't need... So I need to know who owns said business and what percentage of ownership that is. For sure. I need to know who the beneficiary owner is. And so that is starting January 1, 2024.
But still in that, like...
And it could charge you $500 a day.
If we late.
Per entity if you're late. So if you got all y'all who want to have 5 LLCs and y'all not using them, they like hanging in the closet because you wanted to start, you better dissolve them.
I also feel like it's a play on money too, right? As we just watched the world change when COVID flipped us up, or all my conspiracy theories who think that it was intentional. However you want to do it.
Lord, let me drink my
water. But however you want to look at it, right? But COVID did happen, and I think the government overextended themselves in a certain way, right? So I think a lot of these laws and changes as we gear up over the next 2-3 years, as we say we in a recession, coming out of recession, going into one, it's a lot of stuff to recoup income for America because America's in debt, as it always has been.
But most bills are done. I mean, the government is really slow. So this stuff was in the works 3 or 4 years ago. It's not like
it just happened.
They came up with the bill 60 days. We see how dysfunctional government is. It's really slow to get things moving through. So this was a Russia oligarch, I feel like for me, backlash, right? Because they were like, we are going to... what is that called? I forgot the legal term when they're like, we're going to kick you out when Russia was invading Ukraine, and they were like, hey, all of you oligarchs here that's hiding money here, we want to kick you out, but they needed to see who owned what. And so it was harder for them to uncover these businesses to kick them out, to be like, okay, this is the money here, we got to leave. Because their country is unstable, you know what I mean? So they invest in different countries to hide money.
No, for sure. I mean, I just got mixed feelings about it. Like, am I going to do it for sure? Because I'm not about to pay $500 a day.
I mean, the small business owner usually ends up footing the bill, but it's usually not intended for us, right? The middle class ends up footing the bill for sure.
For sure.
So I think, January 1, 2024. Yeah. You got to get it started. It's not a tax return. I have been hearing that out there.
Yeah, it's not
a tax return. It is a separate entity. Your tax professional is not responsible for that. So I want everyone to know that. It is not a tax return.
But our office is here to help. So
right?
if you need assistance, come our way. We could make sure that we get it.
So you might want to go with the person who's helping you set up your legal entities.
But it's a reporting report. Yeah. Right? It's an informational report that says, hey, Dr. Blackwealth owns ABC accounting firm, right? I also own X, Y, and Z investment firm. Yeah. So everybody who ready to jump out with the 8 business entities, you got the S Corp, this, that, and the third. You got to report on all 10 of them.
Yeah.
Right? So we got to make sure that we send it out. Government just want to know who's the person who actually owns it. Who's the person I could tangibly touch to say, hey, Farah, you own this business, right? Yeah. And so it's information.
25% or more.
Right. So if you got interest of 25% or more, interest covering a lot of stuff. If you are, and they really did they thing with this as they navigated, right? Because some of y'all might get a little slick, right? So it's if you are in a senior position, if you have any type of authority to make decision changes about money, about the business. You're part of the report.
Yes, they want you. They
want your information.
Yep.
Right? If you're the sole person, they want your information. If you 25% in so if you're in a partnership, but you limited in a sense, like if I just threw money at Farah, she doing a real estate.
Limited and general partnership.
I don't have to disclose me, but she have to disclose her. Why? Because she's making all the decisions. She's the head factor, right? So even our tax strategy on setting up the board of directors. Yeah. Well, then now, which one of those actually are on the board and have ownership and can move the needle, right? So we got to disclose who that is, right? And so every day that we don't do this, starting January 1, right, it's a $500.
30 days.
Right.
So you have a 30-day window from the time you set up a new entity.
A new entity.
Right? So starting January 1, if you set up a new entity, you have 30 days to get this report in.
Gotcha.
The 31st day is $500. Gotcha. Every day after that's $500, up to $10,000, even imprisonment they talking about. I guess they start looking and seeing how flagrant, how much you're been. And it's also relatively to small businesses. So if you're a large corporation, a large company, you have 25 members or more, 25 employees or more, you're exempt from from this having to do the BOI. If some tax exempt companies, like churches or some nonprofits, do not have to do said report. But for the most of you who have LLCs or small business owners, mom and pop stores, this applies to you. You have less than 25 employees. You have to do this report. If you start a new report in the 2024 year, if you already have a business like me, I have 4 business entities. Right. I have until 2025 to get it in. You got to the government's giving us a year. So guess what I'm going to do January 1, 2024? While I'm talking about it the next 40 days, I'm going to do it because I don't want to wait until the end of the year. I'm like, oh my God, let me hurry up.
That'd be me. Like, it's October, I ain't got it.
No.
Then it's January. I gotta find.
Yeah. I ain't giving I don't want to give the government no more.
No more than I have to.
Than I have to. January 1, that is my New Year's resolution, to get all of the businesses registered and done and out the way. Yeah.
So I know we're doing it for, of course, me. I got a few entities and then all the businesses that we manage.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and knock those out. But if you, like you said, if you're new to it, if you start your business January 1, you got to do it within 30 days of any business starting, right? Yeah. So I don't want to just stick on January 1. If you start your business in February 1,
absolutely,
you got 30 days to put the report in, right? So for a new business owner, you got 30 days. If it's, I
would just make it a part of
the business setup.
The business setup like anybody else. I'm going to get
Secretary
my EIN number.
State.
Yep. EIN number, Secretary of State. Now the
operating agreement, now BOI.
Yep.
So it's already part of that package, right? So all you do it yourself is make sure
it's
you cover
it's the
those
new
bases,
reality. Yes,
right?
it's the
Because
new
that
reality.
$500 a day add up quick. So those are some things that are just new on the horizon, changing. Another thing that we jumped into, just to keep pace with inflation, the government always push back, keep pace with inflation. The new rules about the standard deduction, that increase the ability for us to. So our standard deduction is higher, which means we get a little bit more bang for our buck, right? So just kind of look it up or get with your guy to figure out what your tax bracket is, because as we know, taxes is in brackets and layers, right? So just kind of get with who you need to get with to figure out what your move is. So government's kind of cracking down, like I told you guys about what all the changes that happened with COVID. So since then, it's very much so intentional that we are really trying to report what we're actually doing, because they're coming. The audits are increasing. They're trying to get a little bit more advanced, get out that cafeteria mindset or mode, right? So we want to make sure we cover those bases. If we have, for our individual people, and if you have any children, what that looks like. Of course, you get the earned income credit, all that stuff. But for businesses, for sure, we're gonna kind of go into some tax strategies. I think I'm gonna kind of like draw this out and show you some things that you could be doing, that if you are that, or that is you, things that you can jump into to do some changes. So one of the biggest things I like to get into is, I know for a fact that we have people who are in the LLC mindset or module, right? And so one of the biggest things that we could do, as I draw our design here, is if I have an LLC, right? So if I have an LLC, we made us some money. A lot of people like to say anywhere between that $40,000 profit,
Yeah.
but I like to say if you can consistently know that you're profiting and making money, right, whatever that number is, a simple change will be jumping to an S corp. We still have time to go in and do that. So I could take my LLC and make it an S corp. Why would I do that? The S corp saves me on taxes in general, right? As an LLC, I'm paying 15.3% self-employment taxes on top of whatever my ordinary income tax is, right? So whatever that looks like, you almost look at it like a double tax, right? So my tax bracket could go from 20% up to 40%, depending on how much money we make.
Yeah, I always look at it as like lasagna. It's layered, right?
Right. No, for sure it is.
Right.
It
so
is.
Between the sauce, and the cheese, you're paying the ordinary tax on top of the self-employment tax.
Good example. Yeah.
So sometimes people think it's in one bucket, and it's not. So
So talk with your guy or girl about what that change is, what that move is to go from LLC to S corp. We just simply have to put in a form called a 2553 that establishes you to become an S corp.
Yeah.
And then there are some rules to it. So what has to happen as an S corp, right? So as an S corp, what I need to do is, one of the things is you got to be on W-2 payroll, right? So with that change, what we're going to do is go find a payroll company.
Please go find a payroll company.
Right? Don't try to calculate this thing yourself. I done seen it done. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to add the cost. We're talking about tax strategies, add the cost. Everything you spend on your business is a write-off, because it's improving your business. It's in the institution of us making more money, right? So you want to be on payroll with the S corp. So get a payroll company, right? There's plenty of them out there. There are services like us at our firm, we provide with payroll services, and there are things that you can do on your own. So one of the biggest requirements is just being on payroll. With that comes payroll tax, right? So this is the tax that our ERC was birthed. All you ERC gurus out there,
Lord Jesus.
The employee retention credit was given to us from the payroll taxes we paid over the couple years of COVID,
with no employees,
right? With right. So all you guys who got that ERC credit don't have no employees at first, right? You ain't even got a S corp, you ain't even on payroll, because as an LLC, I cannot be on official payroll.
No.
So what do I have to do? I have to do draws. That's literally going from business checking, and I have to send money to my personal checking, right? We're doing a withdrawal to move money as a LLC, right? So, but when we go to S Corp, we got payroll taxes. So yeah, we got to pay a little bit more, but guess what? We get the deduction, which saves us on the tax picture, right? So when we see it here, we have our LLC S Corp. That's a major change. I'm gonna probably always talk about this in any setting that we have, because that's the one thing that's people just don't understand.
And those are the first two things that you want to think about when you think about lowering taxes, right? Is your bookkeeping,
the business structure,
and their business structure. Those are the first two things I would look at as you're thinking about how can I lower my tax liability? What does that look like? Am I capturing everything first? Do I have proper and good bookkeeping? Am I capturing everything that my business is spending on? Right? Can I increase that? And let me change my entity to lower my tax, to change my tax picture and what's due for me. So I think that's major before people start going into, let me buy a G-Wagon, let me depreciate, let me get into real estate. They start doing all this other stuff, and the basic, those two fundamentals are not done. And you start looking at the books and go, well, wait a minute, you're missing so much here that you're not taking advantage of. And so we kind of always skip the basic fundamentals and jump to all the lights, camera, and action. And then we're not ready for it.
And we talking fundamentals, but this apply to those seasoned business owners. I'm changing entity structures all the time. We just don't understand. And I get it. We just don't know what we don't know, right? Somebody said start an LLC, and we did it. We made 7 figures in the LLC. Now you're trying to figure out why you're paying so much taxes. This simple change here to go from an LLC to S Corp drops your tax picture tremendously. Then you have the things like going into real estate, which we put on this right side over here, right? LLC and the real estate. Because we don't understand business structure, what happens is we get, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the houses is owned in one LLC. Because we don't understand how business structure work, we don't understand that we need to divide this out. Let me get a main LLC, right? And depending on, it's 2 ways that you can go.
Or you put it in the S Corp, and which kind of dilutes the impact of,
definitely don't want to own the real estate in the S Corp
of being able to do what real estate can really do, which is depreciate. You get a bigger bang for your buck. It's more powerful in a lower level LLC on your personal 1040, right? Because whatever that last number is, usually the real estate can help wipe that all the way out.
So when I think about LLCs with real estate, I want to own the LLC, right? And then I might want to put one house in the LLC. Or I could do it based off equity, right? If I get $1 million in equity in one LLC, it could be in one LLC, but right, we put barriers. So understanding that is a simple tax strategy of just business structure that lowers your tax debt. Right, so these are things that we want to look into now, because I could buy it. I still got time. I could buy a piece of
you got 40
right now.
41 days, and some change left.
For sure.
So it's like, hey, it's the fourth quarter. What am I doing? What can I do to right now? What are some tax strategies I could do to help with my financial picture for the end of the year? Well, we know a lot of people get really philanthropic, right? We want to do holiday parties. We want to give away to the charity, to the kids, toys for tots. We want to do all of those things, which is great, and it also builds brand awareness. But it helps you reduce your taxes for sure.
So if I do the holiday parties or whatever that
bonuses, cash bonuses are really good
to
for
my
your
employees.
Team. For your team employees. It builds morale. They're excited. They got some extra cash.
But knowing how much you can give them it always goes down to the numbers, right? So I'm gonna always drill this in because it's not talked about enough. So if we understand how much money we made, know how much expenses we have, we know how much is left. I know that, let me set up I could do a holiday party December 1st. We could spend X, Y, and Z amount of money. That's a write-off, whole event staff for or I could do a bonus, and maybe people was doing good.
Or you can even plan, like some of you who are like, I want to do a conference or an event. You can plan it now. You can I'm going to reserve the venue.
Pay the event planner now.
Pay the event planner now. Set it up for next year. I'm going to take a course or a class or something.
Or a conference.
But I'm going to pay for it now, right? The thing is that you have to spend said money in the year in which you're trying to get
and the reason why. So what happens in a tax strategy? What happens is it was kind of like my mixed feelings with the BOI situation, right? As business owners, we take control over our world. This is my world, and I take control of it. I do not want to put my hands in the hands of the government, where the government can tell me who, what, when, where, and why, and under certain parameters.
Yeah.
So as a business owner, I'm doing strategies so that I could do what? Keep more of my money.
Mm-hmm.
So I might open up a retirement account.
Mm-hmm.
I might do the holiday part. It's
Mm-hmm.
causing me to spend money,
Mm-hmm.
but I have control over where that money is going.
Yeah.
Versus writing a 6-figure check
to the government. Absolutely.
Like if I can avoid paying Uncle Sam
Yeah.
$50,000, $30,000, $100,000,
because the deal is you still have to spend it.
Right.
We're just saying
spend it another way.
Correct.
That's
get your
gonna benefit
bang for
you.
your buck.
Right.
That's going to benefit you. Spend
Right.
it. That is benefiting you, and you don't have to give it to the government.
For sure. So
but you can't not spend it and say.
Right. And you can't just hold on to it.
Correct. It's not going to work.
So if my tax picture is looking like I owe the government $50,000, how do I know that? Because we could do the taxes now, the numbers and all that stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
I might want to spend, maybe let me spend $25,000 on something. Let me
Mm-hmm.
curate an event. Let me do a holiday party. Let me do a bonus. Let me do a charity event, right? So I can give to the community. To give the money to somebody. I ain't saying the government ain't useful, but I am saying the government ain't useful. So give the money to somebody who could use it, right? Pay for it's holidays. People need turkey, food, gifts, all that stuff. So these are the strategies that you could use to do that. So that's basically what we're saying.
And one of the main changes with the end of the year is the bonus depreciation, guys. So a lot of people that are going to buy the G-Wagon, that are going to buy the Suburban, you still get a good percentage, right? It's at 80%.
Last year was at 100.
It was at 100. So that other 20%, you're going to have to regular depreciate. You can't take the whole amount up front. So
bonus is at 80.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and that's still good now.
It is.
Still good. That's not, cheap chump change. That's still good.
It's going to drop again.
Yep.
But knowing that, it's like, okay, well,
I'm going to be prepared.
This is how you strategize. Well, bonus depreciation is at 80. Well, I can do 80% here. Maybe I can make up numbers over here, increase my salary or whatever that looks like. Start another entity, right? Because you invest in a new company, depending on what you're trying to do.
And like you said, the P&L is super important.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't strategize that enough. You don't know how much you're going to save if you don't know how much you made.
Yeah.
Like if you have no idea where you are year to date, then you will be the main ones upset next in April.
For sure.
You'll be upset in April. And why you should, and this is another reason, I'm just going to put this out there, one of my pet peeves, why should you be super prepared and ready and have your P&L and know year to date how much you're making?
Ain't stressing out your tax.
Right? You should have it ready. It's end of the year because guess what it's due right at the beginning of the year, March 15th.
Right.
The corporate return. Then
y'all
not paying penalties and interest and we got to keep extending, and you're giving the government more money than they need to have.
So if I'm an
S Corp, ready. You're not ready.
You ain't. So if I'm an S Corp or partnership, like my taxes is due March 15th.
That's right.
So right now you should be preparing, right? So we should be knowing what's going on, so you're ready to either pay the bill or do something to reduce that tax picture so you don't have to pay more than what you need to.
And if you've been with your tax professional, y'all been talking, you already have a running P&L, guess what? You're like 85% there.
Yeah. So, what else could you think of? These are some really good tax tips that we're giving out to close out the end of the year. So, as we move into more episodes, we're going to get into more and more strategies as we go along, as we close out the end of the year. And so, make sure that you're tuning into us. Like I said, look, make that switch. Do that S Corp switch.
That's right.
Understand where your numbers are so you know exactly what you need to do. Let me quarterback this thing, right? So I can quarterback it from the numbers, right? So as we move into more and more things, we're going to be providing you more and more tips, all right?
That's right.
So, this is a wrap with episode 7 of Mind Your Biz. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Put it in the comments what you guys want to see, things that you like, didn't like. Talk to us, right? We want to talk to you.
We hope it was useful for you.
Yeah.
We hope you got some really practical information and learn some things based on our journey in the business space. And so just like you said, like, subscribe, and share.
And we'll be right here minding your business.
Right.
I run with that and line that up. You know what I mean? But we've been sitting on this for a while. And the not implementing, knowing that they probably hurting for money and I don't want to say hurting for money, but looking for money to recoup. And